Hello, friends. Welcome to the Veterinary Life Coach Podcast. Today, I have an amazing guest for you. His name is Dr. Matthew Campbell. He is a clinical psychologist who helps people build sustainable self-care without burnout or guilt, which is what veterinarians need. He focuses on why motivation fades, why people struggle to stay consistent, and how simple structure, rather than perfection, supports mental and physical well-being. Dr. Campbell is the co-creator of Our Primal 5, a framework centered on five foundational areas of health: sleep, sunlight, movement, social connection, and consumption. And his work helps people feel better first, so change becomes possible, which is exactly what we talk about on this podcast. So I'm really excited to talk to you today. Welcome to the podcast, Matt. I can call you Matt.
You can, please do. Please
All
do.
right, I
Thanks for
already
having me.
was, so it's probably
Yeah.
probably going to be okay. But yeah, so I'm really excited to have you. And my first question to all my guests is always to tell me their story. So wherever you want to start, whatever you want to tell me about how you got to where you are now would be
Mhm.
great.
Yeah, absolutely. So I have been in private practice for over 20 years. And in my practice, treating, obviously a variety of different issues that people deal with: anxiety, depression, bipolar disorder, all, kind of across the spectrum of things. As I was doing this work, what I was finding is that oftentimes we're dealing with things that involve a lot of pain. We're often very intense issues that people have dealt with or are dealing with. But as time went on, I was noticing more and more that what we really needed to do before we got into heavier things or more action-oriented things from the emotional behavioral point of view, we really needed to take care of the foundation. Because so often the people I was working with were just really depleted. They were really exhausted. And in looking at it, one of the things I was noticing more and more is we weren't sleeping well, we weren't moving, we weren't getting out, we were isolated, we were compensating through putting, different things in our minds and our bodies, to just try to get by. And the way that as I began to process that, I really started looking at it in terms of, what are our bodies made for? That has not changed over time. The world we
Right.
live in has changed. The demands,
Yeah.
what's available to us has changed. So these things that our ancestors did, that our bodies were made for, they did so out of necessity. Now we have to choose them. Now we
Mm.
have to make them a priority. They're not
They're
necessities.
not automatic in life
Right.
like they
They're not
used to be.
necessary today
Yeah,
like they
that makes
were in the
sense.
past.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And
And
so
so
you started looking into this, huh?
I did. I started really looking into it, and it was something that as I was looking into it and I started putting things down and looking at maybe putting something together in this regard, despite the fact that I have been so passionate about it for so long, it was still eye-opening to me that these things that of course are not revelatory. These are not new things. We know that it's important to sleep well and to have those we're close with and to move and to be outside and watch what we're consuming. We know these things, but the interesting thing is, despite knowing them, when you look at the numbers, it's a bit startling at how poorly we're doing at them.
Mm.
And we've got to figure out something to bridge this gap because you can't you can't outthink a depleted system. You can't, it is a necessity. It is an absolute necessity. We know the effects of not attending to these. So I'm just trying to create a structure to get after it and for us to help ourselves with these.
So when you thought about this, did you start to kind of try it out on some of your patients and say, here's what I want you to try. I want you to try, because your five is sleep, sunlight, movement, social connection, and consumption. And I wanted you to talk about all those. But did
Sure.
you like say, I think these are the five most important things, and then start asking your patients to try them? Like, how did you decide on these five? And I guess I'm kind of going all over the place, but
Well, no, it was really observational. It was really
okay.
something that was through, for example, the intake session, the first session that you're meeting with the client and you're beginning your work together. You know, all these questions that we have, many of which are background questions and
Sure.
just kind of daily life questions, just get a sense of what things are like for the person. And I
Yeah.
just kept noticing how frequently, sleep was poor, how often they weren't moving, how what they were consuming, and again, consumption naturally, or I think historically, we think of food and drink. Uh,
Right.
but now it very much is digital consumption.
Social
Uh,
media.
hmm
It's like a
Very much
cancer.
so.
Yeah.
And just all of this that's available to us. So it was really observational and noticing these patterns and how often people were struggling. But from there, in terms of working with clients on it, it became something where while I would mention them, when I would notice a person was really there was one, I would never want to do more than one at a time because
Right.
trying to
It's
build
too, you
momentum.
can't change everything all at once, right?
Absolutely. And so
Yeah.
yeah, and so kind of identify, okay, we seem pretty isolated, like what can we do, to get more engagement with others? We have this epidemic of loneliness, and maybe this
Mhm.
is a human that I'm working with where that is a deficiency that we need to get after that.
Yeah. So why do you think it's so hard for us to, I guess, make those connections or even take care of ourselves? Like what makes it so hard for us to focus on that or do what we need to do?
I think so much of it has to do with the world we're living in.
Hmm.
I think as humans, we have this wiring, maximize pleasure, minimize pain
Mm.
in the moment.
Yes.
And I think we have that drive. And we live at a time where there are so many choices so many things available to us, so many conveniences, which are wonderful, but it can go overboard. One of the things that I think of, I used to talk to clients who maybe were having some problems with their diet and things like that, and I would talk to them about how one of the challenges that we have with our food and our eating, with the dietary habits, was that like our ancestors, they had a function, like they either hunted or they were fishermen or farmers,
Right.
or they did some other, role. They had some other essential role in their community, but it was like they were getting their food, they were working for it. And now we go to the grocery store and we're the greatest, hunter, farmer, fishermen of all time. And we can get strawberries in December. Uh,
Right.
you
Yeah.
know,
There's
uh,
no effort.
no effort. But so no longer do we have to do those things to procure food, but not only that, but now, shoot, we don't even have to get in our vehicle and take that convenient drive to the grocery store where we're going to be around
Right.
other people at least. Now
Hmm.
we can order them to be delivered. So we have all these conveniences that in the short term are really wonderful. But in the long term, I mean, our quality of life is our accumulated daily choices. That is really what's going to determine our daily life and our quality of life and our capacity for engaging in the world. But so we have all these conveniences, and I definitely don't want to suggest these aren't, there aren't wonderful things about them, but when we're not attending to these others, to these very basic aspects of human functioning, we're going to suffer over time. We're going to
Right.
suffer over time.
Yeah. And I don't think people realize that, because our body is so wired to be comfortable and
Hmm.
safe,
Hmm.
but it's a detriment. It's to our detriment.
Certainly now,
Yeah.
certainly now when there are so many of these choices, and it's one of the reasons that I think, one of the ways that for in regards to moving towards change that I think is, at least for me, I find important and useful is I think first, if we can have some understanding of what's going on,
Mm.
then it makes getting after it, making change, things like that, much more doable and make more sense. I think it's important to recognize, like, again, we are having to be intentional with these things more so than any generation preceding us. And so it is challenging, and it's challenging because we are wired for the easy, the path of least resistance, and there's so many
And
options.
now we have it.
We have it. Oh my gosh, we have it. Especially like in our country and just in spades. I mean, it's just there's so many different things, and the other thing to me that is a challenge. It's kind of like veterinarians. I mean, I don't imagine there's a veterinarian that hasn't pulled an all-nighter. And when
Right.
say when they were in school at the
Sure.
very least, and they pull an
Yeah.
all-nighter. Well, here's the thing, particularly when I was a young guy. I could pull an all-nighter, and yeah, I would be a little fatigued the next day for sure, but
Right.
it would be all right.
It
I'd
wouldn't
be
kill
all
you.
right. No, I'd be all right.
Right.
And that's the thing with a lot of these, like, we can stay inside for a day, and it's not like we don't have that immediate negative consequence, right?
Right.
And so sometimes that can fool us. It's since without that immediate feedback, it's kind of like, well, I'm okay. I don't need to do that. Or the big
Right.
one that with my clients, um, when I ask about sleep, oh, well, I get 4 or 5 hours sleep, but I don't need that much sleep,
Right.
right?
I'm one of those people that doesn't need it. I've said
Right,
that before.
exactly. Oh, but the thing is that while, of course, just like anything, that's going to be true for some people, it is definitely the exception. And
Right.
what's happening more often than not is people have become accustomed to their depletion. They don't think about those 5 cups of coffee, that they use
Hmm.
in a compensatory way. They
Yeah.
think that that swoon, that afternoon fatigue that they have, that's just the way it goes, right? So
Yeah.
we get so accustomed to the depletion that, yeah, I don't think we recognize, what we're doing to ourselves.
And then it's damaging.
Right.
In vet med, we talk about self-care a lot, but I don't always think we know what that means, number one. And number two, we kind of have a tendency to call it burnout
Hmm.
when I think on some level it's not taking care of ourselves. Like we blame the job for burning us out, when
Right.
I think in reality it's the way we're handling our life that's
Right.
causing the burnout. So, can you talk about that maybe a little bit? What's your take on that?
Absolutely. Absolutely. And there's a lot with to what you just said. I feel like the way that I view self-care. Sometimes I even describe it as foundational self-care because I think
I like that.
self-care
Yeah.
has become it's a very big term, very big
The
concept.
buzzword, right?
It is. It is. It's become commercialized. It's so many things.
Yeah.
And so to me, it's taking care of the human basics. That's
Okay.
what it's really about because at its core, we know if we're not taking care of these, there will be consequences. There will be problems. And so burnout is exceedingly more likely in someone who is just chronically fatigued. Someone who is compensating through putting crud in their body all the time, who is isolated. We know what the impacts of loneliness on
Mhm.
mood, who is indoors all the time. I mean, one of the things I will say, my friends that are vets that I love is they're outdoors people. And my friends who are veterinarians, they are outdoors, and I love it, love it, love it.
Yeah.
I think it's such a cool thing. Of course, I live in Mississippi, so maybe that has something to do with it too. But
Well, right. And a lot of our jobs involve being outdoors, especially the large animal people, right? They're
right,
outside almost all the time. Um, but I think you're right. The foundation is probably the big focus. And so this that you're that you're working on, this Primal Five, is really an interesting way to look at it because I think it simplifies it. Because when people say self-care, they think of, oh, I have to meditate and I have to do yoga and I have to, get a facial or whatever. And I don't think it's that complicated. And this, the way you're talking about it makes it a little bit, gives you a start, gives like you a foundation, like you're talking about.
I really I really think along the same lines with it. I think we are so we're so taken by complexity. If it's complex, it seems more accurate
Yeah.
or smarter or what have you. But I think it's overwhelming what is out there, and in terms of claims that are made for this or that or the effects of them. I was joking with a friend the other day after looking at social media, and I kept seeing on this, this algorithm about, blueberries, 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 and I said, man, as many blueberries as I already eat, according to this, I should be 10 foot tall and bulletproof. I mean, like, it's amazing. I'm gonna live forever according to this,
Right.
but there's so much information out there, and I think it can become overwhelming. But the other thing I think it can do, I think it can be really counterproductive because I think that we see such extremes and
Mm.
people doing, and it's like we have to do it this way. Like you can't have a bad meal, you can't, it becomes this perfectionistic
Too
or
structured.
an all or none thing, right?
Mhm.
And or it's extreme in terms of, well, this exercise program or what have you. And I think that that's really counterproductive because I think it makes people, feel like I can't do that. So I'm not
So
going to
then
do.
they resist it all.
That's right.
They just
That's
throw it
right.
all away. I can't do any of it.
That's right.
Yeah. So how would you get them started? Like, let's say there's a vet out there that's listening to us and they're like, I don't take care of myself at all. I don't sleep. I don't get outside. I don't have any friends. I don't move. Like, this speaks to me. Like, how do you get that person that's very much a perfectionist
Hmm.
to break out of that and start with this foundation? Like, how does that work for you?
Well, I think that the easiest answer for that, and that kind of captures what I would encourage, would be have your cup of coffee in the morning on the porch.
Mm,
Start
I
with
love
something.
doing that.
Start with something like that. Let's
Yeah.
start with something that we're stacking it with something we already do in our day. And we know it's healthy for us. Morning sunlight is phenomenal. Morning sunlight's the best for us. It sets the circadian rhythm. It helps us with sleep. That's one of the interesting things about sunlight is that morning sunlight is a tremendous sleep aid.
Mm,
Um, so that's something that we can do, that is a way to get started on it. And then ultimately, and it's like in the workbook, one of the things that we say in the workbook as it's getting to these 5 areas, these 5 week chapters, one of these a week. But the 5 chapters of it is that certainly you can go through them in order, but another thing that you can do is to think through and observe for yourself, like where am I struggling the most?
right.
And maybe that's the one that you jump into. And so that's really what we're looking for. And the key is, there are a lot of things we mentioned in the workbook, but there are a number of things that we can do to really increase our chances of success. Um, that you're really trying to build something, and improve on something rather than have this idea that, well, I'm going to get 8 hours of sleep, every night this week, and it's going to be just like this, or I'm going to exercise, for an hour, and that we're just
Every day.
right, that we're just going to flip a switch, and that's not realistic. We want to
Right.
set up success. We want to build and build and build. That's the goal, and we want to, let ourselves mess up because it's going to happen because we're humans and life happens.
Right.
Want to be able to view slips and dips and these kind of things is recognize that if used correctly, those are part of the change process that strengthens change.
I love that.
Yeah.
So if you mess up, it's
Hmm.
it's teaching you what you can do differently the next time.
Right. And I would say when you mess up, because it's going to
Sure.
happen.
Of course.
It's going to
Yeah,
happen. Is that
of course.
I like to use the example of a mountain, is that if you look at a mountain from a distance, you see, generally speaking, you see, two sides that are climbing, the two sides of the mountain, and there's this, you know, this climb without any breaks, and it reaches this apex and such. But then when you get closer to the mountain, what you notice and you start traversing the mountain, what you notice is that, there are some sheer faces to it, but then there are also these dips and plateaus and things like that. It's just that the overall trajectory is up.
Mm.
And that's change. That's change, is that we mess up, or something happens, and it's okay. I mean, not only am I going to get back on it, what can I learn from that? Like what may be helpful in the future in that regard. And now I'm strengthening the change. But too often people are like, well, I messed up, there it goes, you know.
Yeah, and then they quit. I mean, that's the whole problem with dieting, right? Everybody thinks, oh, if I don't do it perfectly, then I have to just start over or don't do it at all. And
Right.
in all these things you're talking about, sleeping better, getting more sunlight, movement, social connection, and consumption in all forms are things
Right.
that, number one, you have to do,
Hmm.
but also you can get better at.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. And it's that's such a great example too, though, with the diet, and I just think it would be miserable to have to eat perfectly. That
Oh, yeah.
the only
I
way to
agree
be
with you.
successful.
You can never have an ice cream or
Oh, goodness gracious. I
candy.
mean,
I'm the world's worst sweet person. So yeah, that would be miserable.
I just can't imagine it. And it's just going to be like that. We're going to have better times than others with these things, but it's being conscious, trying to work at it, be aware, be mindful,
Yeah.
that we are part of this earth. There are certain things we need. And if we don't attend to them, it'll be at our expense.
Yeah. So what's your take on social media? Because when you said take your cup of coffee outside,
Hmm.
I pictured that, one of the temptations is to have your phone in the other hand, right?
Oh my goodness. I walk every morning with my dogs, and we have a park nearby, and I walk with them, and it it amazes me. I live in a college town, and I will say that it's mainly the college students. They will be walking, and it's like fantastic. They're out here in the morning, and they're walking, and it's beautiful and all this, and they have a phone in front of them. And I mean, shoot, I'd trip over my own 2 feet if I tried to do that. But
Right. I couldn't read my phone and walk at the same time.
that would be a bad idea on many
But I
levels.
didn't grow up in the generation where I
That's
always
right.
had that phone in my face either.
That's right. But
It's a
it is a
challenge.
temptation. And I
Yeah.
think the technology, it's amazing, it's frightening, it's positive, in certain ways. But
Right.
it's what the phone does is that obviously we think about the algorithms, and we think about how it's absolutely got us figured out, and it just stays on it, and people want to feel that, that they know what's going on, or they get
Mhm.
this stimulation and things like that. And so, Jonathan Haidt's research, which I would say he's certainly the most well known in that space right now, for research. But his research, the latest I've seen, is that he suggests that, in terms of screen time more generally. So use of screens for non-essential reasons. So it's not work, it's not school related, things like that. He gives 2 hours for those, under 18, and four, which seems generous,
Yeah.
for those 18 and older, as kind of that point at which we're more likely to see problems. But I don't think anyone would argue with getting less than that if possible. But it really is something. I mean, his research shows that, in particular with that teenage crowd, but this goes for everyone. It's not just, oh, this just affects teenagers in this way. It's
Right.
much
Right.
more broad. But he has some interesting research on what happened, just doubling essentially of, anxiety and depression and suicidality that occurred with the burgeoning social media platforms. And so, um, you know, some is okay, but it really, really, it, like most things, is unhealthy for us.
Yeah, and I would add, I've talked about this with a lot of my clients, that if you're on, because I have to do this with myself, if I'm on social media, because I always feel like I have to check it, figure out what my kids are
Mhm.
doing, or you
Sure.
like you don't want to not be in the know.
Sure.
But if you're on it and you're not feeling better, like you will start to notice that you don't feel right if you
Hmm.
pay attention, or
Right.
you're looking at stuff that you don't really want to see.
Right.
Like, why am I watching this person outside having a good time when I'm sitting in the house not doing anything? So I think if you just get a little bit more aware of what's
Mhm.
happening to you when you're on social media, I think it
Yeah.
really it really starts to help you stop, because it is very addictive. Like you
So,
say, I'm just going to look at this for 10 minutes and then 30 minutes later you're still scrolling. And
right.
so I think you really have to pay attention to how is this making me feel?
Right.
Like, am
It
I
really
feeling
is.
great or am I starting to feel like crap because I've been watching too many, you know,
Right.
commercials about blueberries?
Yeah. I tell you, they're out there. Apparently, I'm living forever. But
I go down those rabbit holes too. I'm always like glomming onto the next vitamin supplement. So I think it,
right. Oh
it has
man,
me like it has me pegged that I'll buy the stuff that's supposed to
the
make you
magic
healthier and live
elixir.
longer. Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
What?
Exactly. Those are the things I get sucked into.
Yeah. Apparently, I've got some similar algorithm aspects. But
Yeah.
I think that in terms of this, and broadly speaking, with consumption, the supernormal stimulus is what we're really talking about with these things that are problematic. And so, essentially, the different areas of consumption, there are things that are very similar to highly rewarding things for our ancestors. And so, but they're kind of approximations of that. It's like it's not the real thing. And so,
Right.
for example, with our ancestors, it's sugar, sweet,
Hmm.
highly reinforcing thing to consume. Wasn't in great supply in general, but a great
Right.
short-term energy resource and things like that. But wasn't, imminently available or I mean, nothing close to now. But now we go down the aisles of a grocery store and these and the processed foods and all these foods, I mean, they're loaded with these processed sugars. So that's a
Mhm.
supernormal stimulus. It's hitting that pathway. And it's like
Right.
our body's getting this feedback,
Yeah.
like that. Or obviously we're wired for survival. And so really anxiety provoking news and the doom scrolling aspects and things like
Mhm.
that. And so we're going to lock in because it's hitting on that survival instinct, you know. I always say, like, the media, it's going to hit, death, sex, or outrage, because they are very primal instincts within us. And so it's going to get our attention, get our clicks, get our views. And again, it's at our expense.
Right. Yeah. Okay, so can you, before we get too long, can you go through maybe each of the five
Mhm.
again for us and just kind of give me a little, just a little bleeb on what the goal is, like for
Oh,
sleep. What should we shoot for? How do we
right. So
make it cleaner? How do we make it better?
Sleep is something that I'm pretty passionate about. For those who are really struggling with it, there's a wonderful approach. Like, if we try our best to do it and we're just not finding it, there's a CBTI, cognitive behavioral therapy for insomnia, is a highly effective approach. It is something that I'm really passionate about. But just at a basic level, for most of us, we're looking at 7 to 9 hours. That's what we're really trying to do. We're trying to create, sleep is so much about conditioning. In other words, that's why you always hear the schedule. I don't think enough attention is given to a consistent wake time. We
Mm,
definitely know, and it's great, the consistent bedtime, that's right on, that's accurate. A consistent wake time is also really important. We want to have a routine before bed. We want to have that consistency because it's getting that melatonin. Our body is getting that signal that, okay, we're preparing to go to bed. And so our body, it starts working in that way. We're trying not to super stimulate ourselves at that time. We're just trying to have that routine. And so there are all sorts of different things that we can do, a lot of which are mentioned in that workbook. But 7 to 9 is what we're looking for. For sunlight, 15 to 30 minutes, daily. Obviously, we have to have skincare. We got to make sure we take care of our skin and such, but definitely at least 15 to 30 minutes. That is something that, there's just that variability in terms of, pigmentation and all sorts of things that can, affect or influence that. But we really do want to get that, and when I'm talking, about that, it's also if I'm sitting there wearing sunglasses the whole time, that's not going to give me the same benefits of that sunlight. It's
yeah,
that sun hitting.
to actually like get in it.
Yeah,
Plus, I
absolutely.
think it lifts your mood. Like, doesn't just going outside make, I
Oh,
mean,
yeah,
it just feels different than sitting in the house in these fluorescent and all these
right.
light bulbs that we're under. It feels different.
Oh, it's absolutely different and getting
Yeah.
that clean air. And we absolutely know the mood effects,
Hmm.
tremendous mood effects for sun exposure. Again, I mentioned I live in Mississippi, so I live in the deep South. Sunlight is in abundance here. Uh,
Yeah.
but
And
and
hot
so
sunlight.
so much so, that I think it maybe of these five, it's the one that's probably least appreciated. But I was speaking with my sisters who live in Oregon. I have two sisters that live in Oregon, and they
Oh,
said we very much understand how much sunlight affects your mood because
right.
it's more scarce there. So we have our sunlight, movement. When I had written the workbook, and I had a friend here at the school here in town. I had a friend who is in the exercise science program, and I asked her, if she could look at this chapter, tell me what she thought, and she said, really right now where we're at is we're trying to move, we're trying to use movement more as our descriptor than exercise because exercise has these connotations to people, and I get it.
It sounds hard, right?
Well, it does, but I think it's often exercise is associated with, maybe more intense regimens,
Right. Yeah.
which are fantastic. If you can do it, that's your
Right.
thing. That's wonderful. But we just got to get moving.
Mm.
Our bodies are made to move. Our minds are meant to be engaged. The human isn't meant, to just sit around and it is meant to be engaged and active and all of the things with that. And so we got to move. Definitely want to move about 30 minutes a day. But that doesn't, like I was saying, that doesn't mean you have to take some extreme exercise approach. Walk, 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 walk. That's
Yeah.
wonderful. And yeah, someone getting moving and doing different things, and whether that be weightlifting and running, I think doing something you enjoy. I mean,
I
like,
think that's half the battle because then
yeah,
you at least want to do it. Because if you're just dragging yourself out, like if I had to drag myself out and run every day,
right,
there's just no way because I just hate running. But I love walking and I love playing pickleball and I like yoga. Like there's all these things I like. So why run, Do
right
something else.
on.
Yeah.
Absolutely, that's it. And the other beautiful thing about some of these, like I had a person I was working with, and to your question earlier, their self-care was pretty poor. They they were in the medical world, and so theirs was struggling. And so we were talking about it, and they were engaged and they were interested. And for this person, what they found is that they'd played a sport as a kid. It was, pickleball kind of thing. It was tennis, I think.
Right.
And it was like they decided, I'm going to pick that racket up. I'm going to go to the court. with some people, play some tennis. And so now, not only are we doing something we enjoy, we're outside and we're spending time with other people and we're
Right. It's
creating
social.
relationships. Yeah, and we're
Hmm.
hitting multiple things at once.
Hmm.
It's just good stuff.
Yeah. Well, that
You know,
brings me to the connection piece because I think in veterinary medicine, a lot of us are introverted. I talk about this a lot on the podcast, and our job is very extroverted.
mhm,
And so we are kind of connecting with people all day,
yeah,
but not really. Like we're connected with our team that we work with in a way. But I find that many veterinarians are lonely because they do this all day. They're introverts, so they need to be alone, but then they don't in their off time make any other connections. Like they don't have hobbies and they don't go out to the bar or to the restaurants or whatever, have crafting or so I think that is a big struggle with connection
mhm.
is the work part of it isn't real connection, I guess. I mean, what's your philosophy on that?
So the way that I look at it, the way I define it, is, kind of a simplistic way of putting it. When I'm talking about connection, it is that we are having frequent daily interaction, with at least one person where being with that person, having that contact with the person is the end, right? It is not a means to an end. There isn't another purpose for that
Okay.
interaction with them. It is that interaction, that person, right?
Yeah.
So
Okay.
it's not about every time we're having this terms of endearment talk, we're having this, and it's not that.
Right.
It is that being and interacting with that person, and it may not be in person every day. Yeah, I
Yeah.
mean, I
Could
am a
be on the phone or
yeah,
yeah.
but we're having some connection, but that person is the end, and vice versa. That is the reason for
The
that
purpose.
interaction. Yeah,
Okay. I love that definition. Yeah,
yeah,
because that's really a difference.
right,
Yeah.
right,
It's not like you're at work with someone, you're doing
right.
something for someone that's different than an actual connection. I love
Yeah,
that. Yeah. All
yeah.
right. Well, what haven't I not asked you that we should have covered?
Well, we've hit a lot of the certainly of the high points, but I really I really believe though that we need to not, I mean, obviously these are things that I'm passionate about and I'm such a believer in, but one of the things that I'm passionate about along with it is it's just about making moves. It's just about, trying to push it forward in whatever area it is a little bit more.
Like
That's
not
just
giving up,
not giving
reaching
up,
out for help,
right?
asking someone to help you, maybe.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
But we know the effects. We know the effects. And I think that for veterinarians, for people who are providing care, um, I think sometimes the work and the amount of work involved is something where it's just like basically it's survival mode that people get in is I'm going to go in,
Yeah, for
I'm going
sure.
to get after this, I'm going to do my work.
Mhm.
I probably recognize, it's more than I should be doing probably, but I'm going to
Right.
do it. I can do this. And it's a meaningful profession,
Sure.
obviously. And so it's these things, but it gets into more of a survival mode. And what I've seen with these super smart people is they will, we can often we're all vulnerable to it, but we can make this error in thinking, well, I'm going to go this hard day to day, but then I'm going to take a really cool vacation, right?
Yes.
Or I'm
Yeah,
going to
we say
go,
that a lot. Yeah, like we think
right,
that's going to fix it.
right,
Hmm.
right. And it's like we have this idea that ooh, then I'm just going to take care of myself. I'm doing all this so I can have, this fun thing. But in reality, it is so much more about our day-to-day choices. And I think it's fantastic. Hey, go on the trip if you can, enjoy it, take
Right,
the time.
right.
But that is not a substitute for the things that we've been talking about today.
Yeah.
These are things that kind of, to use the statistical term, they account for a whole lot of the variance of our experience. They have such an impact on our daily life. And so it is not going to be replaced by a nice trip.
Right, right. So tell us a little bit about the app and the workbook because
Yeah.
we kind of briefly touched that there was such a thing, but I want people to know what it is so if they're interested they can find it.
Yeah, certainly. So I have a website. It's Our Primal 5 with the number 5, ourprimal5.com. And it has information not only about this approach, but it also has links for the workbook or a link for the workbook, a link for the app. And so the workbook goes by. I mean, it gives the basis and the background for what we're doing. And then it goes week by week in these 5 different areas, and there's
It gives you
tries
kind of a structure.
structured approach for
Right.
how to go after it, information not only on the effects of these different areas, how they affect us, but also on some behavior change techniques or just information that's helpful for that particular area. And so that's week by week. It is a workbook by design. I think that sometimes in the self-help genre, I think sometimes when people read these things, it's more about cool ideas and interesting ideas.
Right.
But I really, again, my passion, I want us to get moving.
You have to put it into practice.
Absolutely,
Yeah.
absolutely. And so that's the workbook. The app that is maybe by the time this is out, it will have been officially released, but it is right there at the finish line. But the idea behind the app is we enter, each day we will enter for the previous day, how, where we were with sleep, sunlight, movement, exercise, time outside, connecting with others, water, alcohol, food, how many clean meals we had, so on and so forth in these areas. So, screen time. And so it's and it so we have these different areas, and it will use what for the areas where we have a range of, okay, this is the healthy range. It's going to use that. And from that, the scoring is kind of, there's a bit of an intuitive aspect to the scoring, but there's going to be a daily score that people receive for that. It'll break down each of the areas, it'll have a trend analysis, what things seem to be associated with others. It'll have behavior change suggestions on it. You'll be able to do it with a friend. If you and a friend have the app, you can connect and kind of keep each
Nice.
other accountable for it. But there are a lot of different things. My hope in developing the app is it's not only to provide the obvious of letting us know where we are in these different areas and overall, but it's the immediate feedback is I'm really really wanting something that gives a more immediate feedback, because as we discussed early on, I think that's one of the challenges is that we don't get the immediate feedback with these things. We
Right.
don't experience it. So my hope with the app is it can provide people who are wanting to improve these things in their life, to give them some more immediate feedback to kind of get an idea of where they are.
Yeah, I love that. All right. Well, it's been really fun talking to you. I enjoy all of this. I think it's very useful and applies really well to our profession and just everybody, right? It's a life thing for all of us.
Absolutely.
And we all want better mental health, and this is a fairly easy way to try to get it.
That's right. Set the
Yeah.
foundation.
Yeah, I love that. Okay, anything else we need to say before we wrap it up?
No, that's
All
all. That
right.
that sounds good to me. What
Well,
we've
thank you
talked
so
about.
much. This has been really interesting and fun to talk to you, and I love the work you're doing, and I hope that the app goes over well and
Thank
that
you.
people
Thank
look
you.
up the Our Primal 5, it's called.
Yes.
Yeah,
Yes.
I love that. Well,
Thank you.
thanks so much for being here. I really appreciate having you.
Enjoyed
Everybody,
it.
this is Dr. Matthew Campbell, and check it out. Sleep better, do all these things. I think it'll help all of us. Yeah, have a beautiful week, everyone. Thanks, Matthew.
Thank you.